There is a giant difference between good parts for sequential taillights and bad ones. Today's video is going to be kind of harsh because I'm going to break these two different products down by 4 different categories and rate them based on my experience building custom taillights. Okay, let's do a quick side-by-side and then we're going to have a little story time session. I remember being like 10 or 11 years old here in Southern California, and my dad took me to the first like legit skate shop that I had ever been to. That's Blast Skate. First thing that I knew when I walked in that door was it smelled like incense and pot, and there were skateboard videos playing. It's just very culture rich with the skateboard scene of the mid-90s. The very first thing I noticed when I was inside Blast Skate Shop was they had these glass display cases and they had all the wheels laid out and all these different little packages of bearings and the bolts, and they had all the skate decks on the back wall. You could buy all these individual things, the trucks, the deck, all of these things were options for you to buy. Versus when you just walk into Target and you go to their little kids section and you just pick a skateboard off the wall and it's a $20 little thing with whatever comes with it. That is the equivalent of these parts from Amazon. So I have 2 different parts here. One of them is for your Amazon shopper, your Pep Boys guy, the guy that wants to get his lights at AutoZone. The other one is gonna be for a Datsun 240Z specific customer that wants the best taillights he can possibly get on his Datsun, right? This is not the same guy. The Datsun guy does not want to put the $20 Amazon strip on his taillights. And if he does, I don't know, it doesn't really matter if he does. We'll talk about the functions that these both share, and then we will talk about the ones that they don't share. So they both have parking light. And when we get right in front of these LEDs, they are crazy freaking bright. We'll even do a little test on the meter here in just a second. But for now, let's just look at them. You know, we can see my hand kind of lights up and it glows. There's no brake light function on this. So if you step on the brakes, there's no intensity change on this. And it looks amazing because I do have a pretty dope lens on my camera. Instead of dumbing it down like this every single time to be like, that's what I see with my eyeballs. Because that literally is what it looks like to my eyeballs. It's just not the same. It doesn't do these things justice, even though they make me squint. And this little dude right here does not. But they also share this function, turn signal. Now this one I have hooked up to a cool little flasher relay that I told you how to make in a video right there. So check that out. And this one is just gonna go over and over again, just repeat over and over as long as it has voltage. So that one, you don't need to have any timing, any programming. There's nothing to do. It's just 3 wires. You've got power, ground, and a little yellow wire for turn signal. And that's what they share. They both do that function. They do parking light and they do turn signal. I think lights are like a lot of things in the world where, like, if you want to just get the average thing, it's super easy to do. It's super easy to find. You hop on Amazon, you go to Pep Boys, you go to AutoZone, and you can find a bunch of different products there, right? But if you really want to find the best stuff, there are shops that are dedicated to just lights. So if you find a shop that does vehicle wraps, and they do engine work, and they do custom lights, like that's not a shop that specializes in lights. That's just somebody who's checking a box. So if you go to a specialist and all they do is lights, you're gonna find out about different brands and different products and all sorts of different things. Okay, I'm gonna judge these things based on 4 different bits of criteria. Number 1 is gonna be build quality. Number 2 is gonna be the looks and function of it. Number 3 is gonna be the skill level required to use it. And number 4 is gonna be the price. So we're gonna turn that guy off and we're gonna talk about this. It does have a cool function that turns it red, and that is a parking light. It doesn't get any brighter, so it can't be used as a brake light. And then the other function that it has is turn signal. So as long as it's got power going to it, it will flash that way, and then when the signal's out, it will go back to red. So it does have like a tail light switchback style function to it, and that is what it does in its entirety. It's 20 bucks. It's just got 3 wires that go to it. You've got a ground, a power, and a turn signal wire. This is going to be a much longer breakdown, but let's check out the functions of this Datsun 240 LED panel. So it does have a dedicated reverse light there, but the cool thing is in that reverse panel, there's red LEDs as well. So they're all completely around there. Now the 280Z has a completely different layout than the 240, and it doesn't have a little cutout for a reverse section right there. So the fact that the 240 does have those LEDs through the whole way, I think it means it can work on a 280 as well. So they've actually thought about a lot of stuff on there. And a big important thing is that they have insane bright brake lights. So when you turn on the brake lights, it's a very clear difference between the two different functions. If you just do brake lights alone, the bottom lights up for a second and then back just to the top. So super cool. From the viewing angle on the side, it's not obnoxious, but from directly behind, you are very clear on what's happening. Now the next thing is we've got our turn signal. So this has the option to just do solid flashing on and off like this, but it also has the option when it has a different wire connected. Now we've enabled the sequential. So we've got one pattern showing right now, but we can actually change this thing up just by pushing a button on the actual panel itself. All right, so I'm gonna hit the button right here on the back, and then I'm gonna hit the button on the lower section as well. And it's gonna flash 1, 2, 3 times, and that is gonna give us a completely different looking turn signal. So check that out. Now it's bouncing back and forth. Let's do that again. We're gonna push the button. It should flash 4 times on top. And then I'm gonna push the bottom one. We'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll check that turn signal style. And so you've got all these different styles, which is amazing because it's all built into the board. You just push a button, there's no programming, nothing like that. It's just built in. And if it didn't have enough, obviously it does have this super dope reverse light as well for the 240s, not the 280s, but the 240s, it is pretty good. Here's where the big difference is gonna come into play. So this actually does come with all these instructions that walks you through all the different functions, the things like I'm showing in the video right now. But the most important part for me is that they included all the bulb sockets, so there's nothing to figure out. They tell you which one goes to which, but it's easy enough to figure out. There's one that's for reverse, one for turn signal, and then one for your brake light, your parking light functions. And those just go right into the actual bulb holders in the Datsun 240Z taillights. So it's a lot different than something that is universal, which is what I'm used to. Just having a little pigtail like this, there's no pins, there's no connector. That's not a huge deal because in a lot of cases, this is gonna be a custom installation anyway, but it does actually require a little bit more user knowledge to be able to work with those wires than it does to just twist the bulbs into the sockets. You know, obviously opening up a tail light, removing those bulbs, and putting that little panel into place on an older car is actually pretty easy. It's just a couple screws, the little plastic comes off, you set it into place, which is harder than to slap on a little strip with some tape on top of your headlight and then just finagle the wires whichever way you can figure out to get them tapped into your parking light and your turn signal. Now, up close and personal, the question of quality is ridiculous. There's all these different types of boards that you can see that Easy Performance has figured out how to make out of one board. All of these things are very specific. There's a quality control, handwritten little check mark there from whoever did that. And I believe this is all made in the US as well. So that's a far cry from these things that are just kind of slapped in a box and loaded up into Amazon fulfillment. Quality-wise, it's just a different beast, 100%. This thing is made to go perfectly into place in that style of taillight, and this is ultra universal, so it doesn't have to be as good, but it still isn't as good, clearly. Now, based on the color of this tape, this basically just looks like that same thermal kind of tape like that, which means it's double-sided. They're kind of, I don't know, I would say foam tape would probably make a little bit more sense. Probably to use on top of what's existing on here. That's just something that's sticky, but you probably should use something like a foam tape as well. If you want to watch a video on tape for some reason. I just made that one yesterday. So yeah, I mean, this quality-wise, but I do know that you can cut these things to length, in which case you would just pop the little cap off and then figure out some way to glue it back on there. This thing there is nothing to figure out. All the holes are where they need to be. The panels, these are gonna be installed in a really cool car coming up here shortly. So I'm excited about that. I would feel blasphemous to install that and make a video like average Joe Blow car YouTube guy that's trying to get traction installing that thing to show you how to do it just to get some lighting perks. That's just not what this channel is about. That thing is what this channel is about. I'm pumped on this thing. So that, in my opinion, overall is an amazing product, and that one is your Target skateboard. It's just got a perfect build quality. I'm gonna give this guy a straight up 10. I just don't think that there's any better that thing could be. Actually, quality wise on this, I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't think that it's like a mid-tier level. I think it is still on the lower tier, but it does seem to be made of a good enough material. It's not just cracking and breaking easy. It's not too bulky like the typical tubes, and there's no stupid little modules that we have to mess with. Everything's just kind of built in to the circuit board in there. So quality wise, I don't think that this thing is an ultra low quality. I just don't think it's very good. It's not a great product. Now, out of form and function, I do think that this thing is ugly because it's just a green circuit board, but it doesn't have to be pretty. So there are things that could be done additionally to make this appear a little bit better. Obviously, they could stick a piece of white vinyl on there for the reverse section. So maybe just having some sort of a decal over the top, whether there's branding or not, just to make it blend in. Maybe a red vinyl section right there might make a little bit more sense. And then form and function on this guy, it has at least an even glow. It's not all pixelated. It's not super bright. It doesn't have to be. That's not the purpose of it. It's a 3. I think that's kind of where this guy's going to be across the board on most things. It lights up enough and it's not pixelated. So now, as far as the skill required to put this thing in, you probably don't need to have a lot of skill to put this thing in. You know, to be able to strip wires and tap into something like that, it might freak some people out. It's what scares most people the most is what they often refer to as splicing. So just stripping a wire and then connecting it to another wire. In most cases, you could just connect this thing with some T-taps and some spade connectors, and it'd be a very basic, easy install. So points-wise, as far as this thing being very easy to install, I'm just gonna give it a 5 because it's just got tape. It's not hard to install. So I don't think that they lose any points on installation for this thing, with the exception of needing to strip wires and put connectors on. Like, that scares some people, so they'd get higher marks if there was something easier in place for that. For these guys though, as far as ease of installation, you gotta take a couple screws out. So it's not like I literally don't know how it would be easier. It's not easy work to do anyway. But all the stuff that they've done to make this straightforward for you, I'm gonna give them a solid 8 for that, because it still is gonna require a certain amount of skill, so not everybody could do it. You know, a couple people out of 10 couldn't do this install, but I'd say 8 out of 10 people could. But twisting these little bulbs into place, that's an easy win. Anybody could do that. And the very last thing is price. I think this thing should be a little bit nicer. It'd be nice if it was 40 bucks and it had all the stuff that you need, the connectors, all that. But instead it just kind of comes out of the box and it's just kind of whatever. So I'm gonna give them a 4 for pricing on that, because it's a cheap product, but you get what you pay for, so they don't really gain any points on that. This one, I'm gonna give it a 5 because it is an expensive product, but at what, 300 something bucks, they really take all the work out of it for you, and then they include all the high priced components and all that stuff. All of these little things, the cost of printing circuit boards and all those different little components on there to do the sequential, like, I mean, it's not like it's supposed to be inexpensive, but if that thing were 100 bucks, I mean, I'd get a 10. Not that that makes any sense. That's too cheap for such an awesome product. Whereas that one, it's 20 bucks and you definitely get that feel. It feels cheap, feels ultra expensive. It's not ultra expensive. Otherwise it would get even lower points, but I think a solid 5 on points for pricing, because most people don't want to spend $300-400 bucks on LED panels. So wow, that was way harder to make this video than I thought it was going to be. Let me know what you think about the rating system, how I rated those things. Give me some grace. I'm just trying to figure this out. I want to rate products like this more in the future. Maybe I'll spend some more time thinking about this, and I will make a dedicated video on the Datsun 240Z installation for the sequential taillights from Easy Performance. Thanks to them. Thanks for Dapper Lighting for sending me this product so I could review it. And let me know what you guys want to see me review in the future. All right, I'll see you on another episode of Vlogmas tomorrow.